Many of you treat us like family. You invite us into your homes every evening as we deliver the news.
And we're thankful for that. So when John started undergoing new treatment for an autoimmune disease, many reached out concerned for how he's doing. Tonight, I sit down with my co-anchor, not here in the 10 News studio, but at his home to have a personal conversation about his health.
Good evening, I'm John Carlin.
Since 1983, John Carlin has delivered the day's news to viewers in Southwest Virginia. A lot has changed professionally over time: technology, co-anchors, and studios. But one thing remains: he suits up, sits down, and when the light turns red, he reads the copy.
Good evening, I'm John Carlin, now at 5 o'clock.
But in the past few years, things have changed personally for John.
In 2015, I came to work one day, and it felt like my socks were balled up underneath my feet in my shoe. So I pulled my shoe off and looked, and to my surprise, they weren't.
Slowly, the numbness started creeping up both legs. After testing, doctors would soon discover John had a mass growing on his spinal cord. In early 2016, after a difficult spinal biopsy, doctors determined that mass was part of a disease called sarcoidosis.
By then, the numbness had crept all the way up my body, basically from my chest to my feet.
So the man who ran the Boston Marathon twice could now barely run across the street. It was a humbling reality for this outdoor enthusiast.
I always thought I would be the guy who was still out there doing it when I was 80. I mean, I always thought that that would be me. I've never had a health issue, ever, a significant one. And I just, I was the guy that always always came easy.
Facing more and more uncertainty surrounding his mobility, John turned to the Cleveland Clinic for treatment.
Sarcoidosis is a multi-system disease.
Dr. Manuel Ribeiro is a specialist who's forming John's treatment plan.
Sarcoidosis of the spine is very rare. Less than 5% of patients will have sarcoidosis of the spine.
What makes John's location so problematic is the masses on the spinal cord can affect motor function of the arms and legs, even causing stroke-like symptoms.
I've had 2 neurologists tell me they can't believe I'm walking after looking at my MRIs.
His symptoms was not as bad as what expected from the imaging.
Right now, Dr. Ribeiro's plan of attack is prednisone and chemotherapy, both of which have visible side effects.
Viewers have been very kind. They've been contacting me through Facebook, they've been emailing me. They're genuinely concerned. They can see by watching me on the news that I'm not my normal self. I don't look the same. This moon face is what they call it from prednisone. It makes my face so tight I can't even smile naturally.
While he's facing physical differences, John has still been able to load up the bike and hit the road.
The great thing is I can still ride my bike. For whatever reason, while running feels too awkward, hiking, if it's really steep, feels too difficult, when I get on my bike, I can still do what I used to do. So that's like my normal.
What's been the hardest part for you?
Well, the hardest part for me is that I've always been super energetic. It makes you stop and think about, how you value who you are and what you do, and do you view yourself through the scope of your accomplishments, or do you view yourself through the scope of who you are and what you believe and your relationships and that sort of thing?
Where you find your identity.
Where you find your identity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has that been hard?
It's a struggle. It's a work in progress.
Not until the end of 2019 will he learn if he's made progress shrinking the mass on his spine.
I'm fortunate that I have the best doctors that I can have. I'm fortunate that I can still do what I can do.
And for now, he'll continue to do what he loves. So this is something that has been a reality here in the newsroom since 2016. We've talked about this, but yes. How does it feel to now share this with the public? This has been 3 years.
It feels good just to get it out there, to be honest. But what I really would like to do is I'd like to be able to leverage the story that you did and sharing this with viewers. And just since we've been talking about it publicly on the air and the promotional piece that aired, the little 30-second spot, so many people have been contacting me to say that they either have sarcoidosis, they have an autoimmune deficiency, or just sending me prayers and thoughts and wishes, all of which really help. And so, you know, I don't know what will happen from this,
Right.
but if we can get the word out there about sarcoidosis and autoimmune situations as a result of me being able to share my story, I think that would be the best outcome.
Yeah. And viewers have just been so kind.
They have really been and I got to tell you, I appreciate it. Please continue to contact me because it does help, it really does.
All right. Thank you for sharing.